Hello all, Nice Tale here, bringing you another knife review. If you would kindly like and subscribe, that would be great. Use my links down below and Amazon. If there are Amazon links, I get a little bit of credit for that, which would be amazing if I can start getting a little bit of income. It will help keep the channel going. It's going to go right back into the channel. Keep things moving through and get new knives to look at. This is the Damn Designs Anzu. I say that question mark because they have like 5 designs with the same handle profile and slightly different blade shapes. I'm pretty sure this is the Anzu. As you can see, this is a very small 5th pocket knife. Small is a bit of an understatement, honestly, because let's check out the specs on this thing. You have a 1.85, 1 7/8 blade length on this thing. I mean, I guess if you really want to get down to it, at the very back, I mean, if you come to here, it's 1.78 or 1 7/8. Back here, you might be able to stretch it to 2 inches. I guess. Yeah, barely. Yeah. Overall is just under 5 inches, and the handle itself is just over 3 inches, which makes sense. Adds up pretty well. Let's make some quick comparisons. In fact, I'm only going to make one comparison because of the size of this knife. My comparison for small knives, the Civivi Elementum, absolutely dwarfs this thing. Yeah, not much else to say about that. It is taller than the Civivi Elementum, both in the open and closed position. By a reasonably decent margin. It also is thicker than the Elementum. Get this background out of here. I think that throws off for the thickness comparisons. Refocus. There we go. Yeah, it's definitely thicker. But how thick, you ask? Probably didn't ask that. Civivi Elementum is 453 thousandths. The Anzu is 536 thousandths. So over half an inch, and in fact, my other comparison knife, being the Conspirator right here, is actually thinner than it too. This is a chunky little thing. But that actually, in my opinion, helps for these small knives. Giving you a little more mass and width to hold on to is just usually a good idea. Blade stock. That's a very odd blade stock. 117 thousandths. Am I 117 thousandths? Okay. Behind the edge. This thing does not have a big edge bevel. Hmm, 14 thousandths? 14, maybe 15 thousandths, maybe? Maybe, no, I'd say about 14. 13.5 to 14.5 is pretty reasonable. It's quite thin. I mean, it's not a huge blade, but it actually has a decent way to drop down. I mean, because the blade is tall, it has more room for it to drop down into its grind than the Elementum. And it shows. This is thin behind the edge. It does not have a big edge bevel on it. And I can attest that this is a cutter. This thing cuts surprisingly well, and it's great for utility cuts. It's great for just these sort of small kind of, you don't have to go in too deep, but you can just shallow cut things, and the slicing is good because of this belly. As there are other variants of Blade shapes, which I will most likely put onto the screen at some point. Maybe right here. Maybe not. Who knows? But I'm still figuring out the editing. Yeah. But it actually performs well. The knife, I guess I should probably go over, since we're still on specs, a general, what is this knife made of? And it's G10 with a texture. It is 14C 28N. There it is. Focus. Really? Focus. There you go. 14C 28N. Blade steel. This is a budget knife. Every way, shape, and form. In fact, I got this one back when they were first doing their Kickstarter for this thing. I paid $20 for this, which is wonderful. I think they're like closer to 40 now, or 45. I don't even know what they are now, honestly. I haven't been hearing a lot about damn designs. I know Kubi's put out a few of their designs under their own logo recently, but I haven't been hearing too much from them. Maybe I'm missing something. But either way, we get back into this knife. So the deployment methods on this knife are, of course, big old front flipper. Super easy. And this, despite looking so ridiculously aggressive, is all knocked down. So it's not. It's just grippy, which is nice to see. And you can pretty much do it any kind of front flipping you want. It's super easy. And there is this tiny little aperture in the blade that can be used for reverse flicking. It does take a minute to get used to because it's such a small thing, but you can even thumb flick it. Let's see. Yeah, even pretty much without wrist, you can thumb flick it. It's not the most comfortable for the thumb flick shape and angle and stuff, but it works surprisingly well. This knife is on bearings, if you couldn't tell. Wait, where is the scale? Scale is over here. Why are you hiding that far away, scale? .77 ounces. Okay, so we're not getting an ounce an inch. It's a little bit heavier for the size of this knife. It does feel it. But we've got full steel liners on both sides. So it feels a little bit more solid and in the hand than a lot of small knives do. So I think that's a sort of pick your poison, and does it suit you? Do you want your small knives to be super light, or do you want them to actually feel like they have enough mass to actually be used? It's kind of up to you there. Hardware check. This should be a T8. It is. Pivot is T8, and I have a sinking suspicion the body screws, because they are so darn small, are T6s. Clip. Body, yep. I mean, there's only really one. There's two for the clip, and you can reverse it. There's a nice little filler tab, which is nice to see most of the time. Sometimes, we'll get into that. Hold on. I'll talk about that. But T8 and T6 hardware, the hardware seems pretty good. It's actually pretty deep. You kind of can't see it, but it really gets in there pretty good, so it doesn't feel like it's going to be as apt stripping out, maybe, as some. Particularly the pocket clip screws. They feel like they were pretty good. They're kind of like little buttons, but they're recessed buttons, so no harm, no foul. So, moving on from the basic specs, we can look at features and different aspects and executions on this knife. And with that, we'll start out with ergos. And as you can see, I can actually get a full 4-finger grip on this knife. That's probably the only reason I like this knife. I don't like getting only a 3-finger grip on my knives. You can go back here and get like a 2.5-finger grip on this thing. It's fine. But just going up here, I don't feel like I'm that close to the edge. And I can just get all 4 fingers on this thing. And I have about a 4-inch hand right here, from this side to this side. About here, it's maybe 3.8 inches. I can get a full 4-finger grip on this, which is extremely nice, and I don't feel like I'm going to slip in. I feel locked in. There's a little bit of this ledge keeping me from feeling like I'm going to go forward into the blade. This is actually quite nice. I mean, you have a tiny-ass blade here, but... And then, of course, something like a pinch grip or something like detail work where you just need the 3 fingers on it. It suits it perfectly. This is a really well-designed handle, in my opinion, because it just sort of works. I mean, even the lanyard hole provides a little bit more mass on the back end instead of letting it curve down. So this one, I feel like they thought this one out pretty good. Stop pin is internal and attached to the blade. It runs with the blade right there. This is the best kind of stop pin, without a doubt. There are channels, and it's stuck to the blade, so there's 2 points of contact instead of just the blade contacting it. I like seeing that. Wonderful design, and not something you normally see on super budget knives. Oh, speaking of the stop pin being irrelevant, so too is the plunge grind, because the plunge grind, it's kind of hard to see because there's a few lines on it from where I cut things, but plunge grind's way up here. Yeah, that's a ton of life to sharpen off before you ever even have to mess with it. In fact, by the time you get your knife blade up to there, it's probably time to get a new knife because there's not much blade left on this thing. So, well done there too. There's no play. I have had this knife develop a little play before I put some Loctite in the pivot. It did back out on me a little bit, a couple times. But I haven't had any trouble getting it back together. Haven't had any trouble centering it back up without play in any direction. I mean, that's better than a lot of budget knives by itself. This honestly feels a lot better than most budget knives by itself. You feel the clip? It's not the greatest clip. I don't like the flat at the end of the clip. It makes it a little bit tough to get in the... And there's not... The clip feels like a clip that's gonna, like, if you get snag on something, it's gonna, like, torque and bend out. It just feels like that kind of clip. It's got good retention, but it just does, for some reason, some aspect about it feels, and you can see the nicks on the clip from carrying it. I don't know if it's going to be a problem. It hasn't happened. And other than that, the clip, I mean, in and out of the pocket, works fine. I usually carry it in my 5th pocket, as it is a small 5th pocket additional backup kind of sort of knife, in my mind. So the clip works. We don't need that flat here. But weirdly enough, despite being so dang small, it's not uncomfortable. I can just feel the clip, which is pretty good. In fact, I'm going to say that's quite good. This thing also has a very nice stone wash on it, as you can see. It's very, like, reflective. Like, it's not a mirror stone wash or anything, but it picks up and bounces the light. But it's a stone wash with a clear, like, satin underneath it, because you can see the belt lines, which is... Can you see them? Can I get them on camera? Yeah, if you look right up in here, you can see some of those, like, vertical lines. Yeah, there they are. Hopefully this comes across. It's an attractive and interesting looking satin. I like it. Something else I like is this pivot. This is Damn Design's logo pivot. They do it on almost all their knives, if not all of their knives, and it's a good-looking pivot. Like, this is just an extra level above and beyond for budget knife. And speaking of above and beyond, and we'll come back to this, the filler tab for the reversible clip. Now, what I started to say earlier was, filler tabs are nice, but there's a lot of knives I've seen them on that I don't like them on. Sometimes when they clash with the material and the flow of the design so much, they just look out of place. It's a nice touch. It keeps things clean, free of debris and stuff like that. But for this knife, it works. It just sort of looks like part of the design. It doesn't do anything. But I've had knives where there's a filler tab in there and it just kind of looks completely out of place. So it's a take it or leave it for me. But it's a nice touch. And this is a super deep carry, which sort of makes it great for the fifth pocket. The only thing I have to say about this knife is the lock bar is... I'm not too fond of when people jimp the lock bar in general on most knives. They end up oftentimes not being softened enough that they end up being a little bit pokey and a little bit uncomfortable sometimes. Like, that is not comfortable. Do not run your finger up and down that lock bar. Now, normal use, it's not a problem. But if you decide to fidget with this thing, the lock bar is going to start fatiguing your finger. It's not super comfortable. It does grip, and there is acceptable access. Not hard to get to. I can still come from the side, mostly. So, I think that pretty much sums up all the aspects of this knife, and as I said, this is actually a surprisingly solid performer. It's also stayed reasonably sharp. It could use a touch-up, but I've used this, and it's... I mean, it's not shaving sharp by any means, but it's definitely still got some aggression to it. So, good job on whatever they did to this. Maybe it's just because it's thin. I don't know. Either way, well designed, surprisingly solid ergos for a tiny knife. Good function. This is a good one. And it kind of looks cool. I think it looks cool. Yeah. What do I know? Yeah, I'm just waiting for it. Okay. So this is a good knife. This is a budget knife. It's definitely recommendable. I'll try to link it below, and even if it's not an Amazon link, which I get a little bit of kickback from, I'm still going to link things. Don't misunderstand me. I'm going to link them where you can get them to see if you want to check them out for yourself. This is a good one. And I don't like tiny knives, but I like this one. So, is what it is. I have two. This is my favorite of the two. So, yeah. Thanks for watching. Again, like and subscribe if you would. And check out some of Damn Design's designs. They're interesting. They're simple, but they're executed with a very deliberate style and feel to them. And apparently they're thought out pretty well. Or at least this one is. So, hopefully you enjoyed that. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.